Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burning, cauldron bubble. With the pricking of our thumb, something wicked this way comes.
I give you an overview of my own module, MacDeath, and talk about how to adapt classic literature for your D&D table. Today on DungeonCraft. Welcome to DungeonCraft. I'm Professor Dungeonmaster, and this channel is about playing the ultimate game of D&D and other RPGs.
And I'm Deathbringer. Level up your game by subscribing and click the bell icon so you'll be informed whenever new videos are released.
A few months ago, I was approached by the Questgivers, DM Scotty and DMG, and they asked if I would be interested in collaborating on an adventure. So I pitched them a few ideas, and the one they liked best was McDeath. Spoiler alert, if you intend to play McDeath as a player, do not watch any further. By all means, let the video play. Just turn down the volume and give it a thumbs up, because that really helps the algorithm. But otherwise, don't watch any further. Lots of viewers have asked how I adapt classic literature for the table. You need three important components to do that. First, it needs to be about a war or a monster. Two, you need to have lots of characters besides the main character. And three, you need to have a villain that's active. Dracula is a great example. You have a great villain in Dracula, but you also have an outstanding group of heroes. Van Helsing, Harker, Holmwood, Seward, Quincy, and Mina. They could all be player characters. And Dracula is actively stalking them. The second half of the novel is really a race against time. That's ideal for a role-playing game. Hamlet is not as good. The villain, Claudius, is very passive. He's already committed the evil deed, killing Hamlet's father. And Hamlet spends most of the play not doing anything. He's like a player character who refuses to take the hooks that the Dungeon Master has set out for them. And as much as I think The Merchant of Menace is a really cool title, it just doesn't have the three criteria that would make for a good role-playing game. MacBeth, on the other hand, starts with a war. It's got a large cast of characters: Ross, Lennox, Angus, Menteith, Caithness, all these Thanes. They could become the player characters. I add a few extra characters, Muriel and Aleth, and MacBeth, Lady MacBeth, and the witches make for strong villains who can actively oppose the player characters. The module opens where the play begins, with the witches chanting on their blasted heath. I assign the three witch roles to the players, and have the other players drum on the table with their fingers to simulate rain so everyone is engaged. This brief 30-second cutscene immediately establishes the bleak tone and the idea that the witches are out there. Then we cut to an epic mass battle. Instead of giving long chunks of exposition, I drop the PCs into the middle of the action. If you've seen my mass combat video, linked below, I employ some of those same techniques. To simulate the initial crush of battle, players make a saving throw, and if they fail, they lose hit points. Then we telescope into a specific battle as the PCs attempt to take a strategic hill, forcing them to work together and think tactically. This shows us this is a world of constant conflict. After the battle, a celebration feast is held in MacBeth's castle, and the RP at the feast is one of my favorite features of this module. The player characters are going to have the opportunity to talk to a wide range of NPCs, including Duncan, his sons Malcolm, Donalbain, Lady MacBeth, Banquo, even the servants. And this is one of my favorite features of the module. They lay out a page with all the different NPC names, and when the players talk to them, you read this little bit of pre-scripted dialogue. This is a great way to keep the conversations natural and flowing instead of the game master having to halt and kind of look up and flip pages and try to figure out what that NPC knows. At the feast, Lady MacBeth is going to make a pass at one of the player characters, which definitely does not happen in the play. But you have to have creative license and change these characters so that you can surprise your players. My Lady MacBeth is vampish and sexy, and she attempts to seduce one of the player characters, and this is accomplished by simply passing them a handout. What exactly happened is completely up to the player. They can give in to temptation or rebuff Lady MacBeth's advances. It's up to them. After the feast is over and everyone has drifted off into a drunken slumber, the characters will be awakened by the howls of wolves. The PCs grab their swords and weapons and follow a trail of blood to the main feast chamber where the werewolf is munching on a dead servant. This definitely doesn't happen in the play, which is why it's so shocking. The players are probably expecting Duncan to be killed, but they weren't expecting this. PCs slay the werebeast in the ensuing battle, and it transforms into the body of the PC who slept with Lady Macbeth, a victim of her sorcery. Prior to the combat, the DM informs the player of the character's transformation via a handout. The player is instructed to make a sequence of D20 rolls and record them on the handout and pass it back to the DM. The DM then uses these rolls in the man-wolf encounter, allowing the afflicted player to secretly attempt to maul his friends. At the end of the encounter, the player is given a replacement character, and this sequence is one of the highlights of the scenario. Players just love trying to kill their friends, and it's one of the things a one-shot scenario can do that your typical D&D session cannot. In the ensuing investigation, it's discovered that King Duncan is dead, and his sons Malcolm and Donalbain have fled the castle. Lady Macbeth, of course, framed them, but it really looks like they're guilty. We jump ahead 6 or 8 months, and Macbeth has been crowned king, and Scotland has gone to hell. It's beset with plagues, famine, civil unrest. Macbeth is killing peasants, and there are rumors Lady Macbeth bathes in their blood, and they've become tyrants. And this is one of my favorite parts of the module, the info dump. I know, info dumps are terrible because they're boring with the game master just describing a bunch of information and the players taking notes, but some of them are just staring out into space or checking their phones. That's the way it usually happens, not this time. Each player gets a handout with 4 or 5 bullet points of things that they have learned over the last 6 months. And in this secret meeting, they have to role play it out, dropping the information for each bullet. Now, they don't have to do it in order, but they have to give all the information on the sheet. And when they're done, they say, "I'm done." All the Game Master has to do is say, "Someone begin." And once someone starts talking, the conversation will flow naturally. When someone says, "I've heard Malcolm has gone to England and he's sequestered there and hiding," someone else will respond from their sheet, "Oh, I heard Donalbain went to Ireland." And by everyone revealing their information, you put all the pieces together and it forms the background of what they collectively know. You could do the same thing in a regular D&D campaign. If your players have spent a couple of months apart between adventures, you have them meet in the typical tavern like they always do, and you give them one of these bullet point sheets and say, "Okay, reveal what's on the sheet." And they just have a conversation for 10 minutes, and that gives them the background, including where you want them to go next, and rumors about magic items or villains that you want them to pursue. In all likelihood, the player characters are going to seek out the advice of the witches, one of the highlights of the play as they predict future events. Here, the player characters will experience those predictions, but from a different point of view. So Macbeth, when he goes to the witches, he gets the prediction, "Beware Macduff." But Macduff gets the prediction, "Beware Macbeth." The next prediction, Macbeth can't be defeated until Birnam Wood come to Dunsinane Hill. Birnam Wood is a forest a few miles away from Dunsinane Hill where Macbeth's castle is located. For players who have read the play, they know Malcolm orders everyone to cut down tree branches and use them as camouflage before attacking Macbeth's castle. Allow the players to think of this idea instead of Malcolm, and I give a lot of alternative ways they could still make this prediction come true. They could hack down a tree and turn it into a battering ram and knock down Macbeth's castle gates with it. Another group made spears and arrows out of tree limbs. That works. There's a whole bunch of ways that clever PCs can make that prediction come true. Now, the final prediction is no man born of woman may harm Macbeth. Macduff on his character sheet knows that he was born via cesarean section. So just like in the play, he's the obvious candidate to do battle with Macbeth and kill him. But what if he dies? That is a possibility, and it has occurred in this game, which is why I've included the characters of Muriel and Alec. Because they're female, they are not men born of woman, so they fit the prediction just as well. And although the other male characters can't technically harm Macbeth, it doesn't say they can't run interference, jumping in front of Macduff and taking hit points of damage for him, or pulling down tapestries on Macbeth's head, or trying to trip him up or disarm him. That's totally okay. And in addition to that showdown, there is another climax that occurs concurrently. As the players approach the throne room, they hear chanting and screams coming from behind a nearby door. Lady Macbeth and the witches are about to sacrifice an innocent victim in a dark magic ritual, and the PCs have D4 rounds to thwart their evil plans. Now the players have a critical decision to make. Are they going to battle Macbeth or stop Lady Macbeth's evil plans? Everybody has something critical to do, whether they're attacking the witches, punching Lady Macbeth in the face, or finishing off Macbeth. Everyone is going to be critical. There are no extraneous characters. It's really meant for players who enjoy Shakespeare. There are a lot of Easter eggs here with the dialogue, and if you know the play really well, you'll be able to find them. But also players that enjoy doing hammy Scottish accents and just being over the top, and they don't mind if they die in some spectacularly gory fashion. Those types of players are going to have a great time. If you want to purchase McDeath, it is available at Questgivers online. There is a link below. Also below, you'll find links to our Facebook group and Patreon, where there will be an extended version of this video where I give you some additional stuff. And if you do play through MacDeath, I'd love to hear about your experiences, particularly about the body counts. Leave those in the comments below as well. Once again, for DungeonCraft, I'm Professor Dungeon Master. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon, and until then, may all your rolls be 20s.
Deathbringer again. They call MacBeth a tragedy, but the real tragedy is how this idiot somehow got 50,000 subscribers. If you're one of them, click on these videos for more DungeonCraft.